Thank you very much, Eileen, for joining us. And,
yeah, well, I'm teaching mode, so it's a good time.
Sure. So you're a hang on a minute. You're teaching with this weekend?
I am. I'm teaching a level 1 biofield tuning class, and we've got about 15 people here. Well, they're not here yet, but they will be soon.
Sure. Great. So it's a level 1 class. So you've got you teach a number of different levels?
I do. I teach 3 levels.
Great. Okay. And does that get people to be practitioners at that stage?
Yes, by 3.
Fantastic.
Actually, by level 2, they can.
Okay.
They have to do a lot of practicing in between. But
Yeah. Good.
It's a really simple method. You know, what I teach is you don't need many tuning forks, and it's basically 2 motions. And so, you know, once you understand the mechanics of it, it's really just a matter of practice. But it's interesting how it's evolved to be so simple and yet so powerful.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to just say a few words about how you reached that kind of place of being so simple and powerful? And
you know, I think that it's just been many hours of doing the work. I started off doing this in 1996, and I did it part-time for a long time, but then I started really seeing more and more compelling outcomes with people. And, you know, as far as having a practice goes, people come to therapists because they have problems, right, that they're looking to have solved. And what's so neat about sound and about, I think, the tuning forks in particular is that it works on so many levels, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, ancestral, you know, and for the people who are into that sort of thing, I think it even works on past lives.
Yeah.
And so, it has the capacity to really solve a lot of problems.
Sure.
And so when you help people to solve their problems, they tell their friends, right?
Yeah.
And so my practice just got busier and busier and busier and busier. And so, you know, just through just from one session after another, and I love to experiment and to try new things, you know?
Fantastic.
So one of my favorite things to say is, you know, let's try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so, you know, lots of trial and error. And the nice thing, again, about tuning forks is that you can't really harm people, you know?
Sure.
Like, you might give somebody a headache, or they might end up a little dizzy for a bit. But, you know, it's not like surgery. Experiments, and it's not a good idea, right? So, so there's been a lot of room for play and experimentation, and you know, I've also really learned a lot from my students because my practice is always evolving. I'm not rigid with my students, and I tell them, you know, if you feel moved to try a certain thing, then do that. And actually, our level 3 training, a big part of it is I have all the students teach. You know, show us all what you've been doing, you know, what you've incorporated, what you've learned. And so by the wisdom of my students, the practice has evolved.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a real collaboration between you, your clients, your students, and an evolving process there. That's really great. Yeah. Well, there is actually Gwenolai here is one of your clients, and is in the room here, and she's actually done some distant work with you, which is quite a fascinating development that you've had happening recently.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a few words about that?
The distance work is, you know, I didn't think it was possible. People ask me for years, do you do this work at a distance? And I would say, of course I don't do this work at a distance. Like, this is physics, people. Like, how would I do it at a distance?
Sound doesn't travel, right? It doesn't get out the room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of my mentors, a doctor in California, actually persuaded me to try it with him. And I was really, really skeptical
and
about
this
it.
is the guy who wrote the foreword in your book, right?
Yeah,
He's
the guy who
a
wrote the foreword in my book.
serious medical doctor, you know, science and all of that, and, you know, and would understand the physics. Yeah?
Yeah, and he's a very cutting edge kind of guy, you know, a real researcher and scientist. but he'd been involved. He'd received distance healing, in other modalities, and he believed it was possible. So, so basically, the essence of my work is a concept I call the Biofield Anatomy, and that is that you have an energy field around your body. I see it as a sort of diffuse magnetism, and that this is where all our memories are stored, and they're stored in standing waves and patterns. And it's consistent from person to person. So when I approach a body on a table that's really there, all of these patterns show up around the body, and I can read them. So I can go through and I can tell people with a lot of detail time periods that they went through that were stressful, or you had a head injury when you're 10.
And you're using the 174 fork to do that scanning process. Yeah,
yep.
Great.
And that's a great fork for the process because it just gives so much feedback. If you move it slowly, and slowly is really key, you move it slowly and you listen really carefully, you can hear all kinds of changes in the overtones. And when it passes through an area where, like somebody had a car accident, say, and there was like all kinds of upset and pain, and, the fork is going to reflect that. It sounds really chaotic and full of static. And you also hit a sense of resistance there. So when I did that first distance session, I was astounded to discover that those same patterns showed up around the table, and he wasn't even there. Like, it was just so bizarre.
So what was he doing? What was he doing at the time, Eileen?
And to tell him, like, you went through this at this age and this and that, and you're in this condition, and your muscles are tight in this area. And we got on the phone afterwards, and I went through my notes, and he was like, that was all absolutely correct.
Amazing.
And I actually felt it while you were doing it, and I experienced a state change as a consequence.
Right, brilliant, amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. And so he wasn't in the room. What was he doing? Sitting at home, or was he lying on a couch, or
just kind of lying on his bed in California, and I was in Vermont, 3,000 miles away.
Yeah. And did you have your couch set up, and you were kind of as if he was there? Was that how you did it? Yeah. That's how you do it. Yeah. Amazing, right? So it's making the point that this biofield is kind of non-local, essentially. Is that your interpretation?
Yeah, and one of the things I've been kind of saying lately is that we've been taught that our mind is inside our body, but really our body is inside our mind.
Yeah.
And really, our mind is infinite.
Yeah, sure.
So if our mind is infinite, then it's accessible from anywhere. With intention. Yeah. And and I talk about in my book I explain that through ether theory. That the ether is this medium that's present everywhere all at once, and it's holographic, and it contains everything. And so you can pluck somebody's biofield information out of the ether.
Okay, great. Yeah.
It's not quantum.
No, it's not quantum, but I understand. But it's as if the tuning fork is kind of plucking it in that sense, plucking it out of the ether. And is it the interaction between your mind and the tuning fork? Is that what's happening, do you think?
I think my mind, the tuning fork, and then your mind.
If I was the client, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's an agreement that we're going to meet in the ethers.
Okay. Brilliant.
and it works.
Yeah.
And recently, I did 2 different group sessions where I worked on over 100 people at a time.
Yeah, great.
The first one I just had us all meet in the ether. The second one I did on speakerphone.
Yeah.
And I connected with 115 people over the phone as a group and worked on them all together. And what was so cool about that one was I was working in a particular area in the field off of the right knee, which relates to obstacles moving forward. And I hit this area that there was so much resistance and so much stuckness. It felt like an insurmountable obstacle, in the group mind that I was working on. And I said to them, okay, everybody, let's help each other over this insurmountable obstacle.
Yeah.
And the energy shifted like that. It just moved so easily. And I was like, yay!
Yay! Yeah. That's great.
I did that 2 more times, over the course of the hour session. And each time the energy moved so quickly. And when I finished, I sent out a questionnaire to the participants, and I said, how did you feel during the session? How did you feel after the session? And how did you feel when I asked you all to help? And it was so amazing, people's experience connecting to the group and helping each other and really feeling the energy shift.
Yeah, great.
And to me, like, the fact that we can meet in the ethers and we can help each other over insurmountable obstacles is pretty huge.
Yeah, it is massive.
So I'm looking forward to doing more group work because it's really powerful and people have really powerful outcomes from it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that's really great you're sharing that, because it might be that some of the folk here would be interested in being involved in that as you move forward. And maybe we can find a way to share, if people want to, emails with you or something, and you know, we could be involved. And you're also talking about possibly coming over to the UK, possibly next year or something.
Yes, next year. I have a student, a very dedicated student who lives in London.
Okay.
And he's actually coming, he's done level 1, and he's coming to San Diego this summer and doing level 2, and then he's coming to San Diego in the fall and doing level 3. And so, you know, I definitely see him as a kind of co-creative partner for developing a school, you know, or at least a presence of some kind with the biofield tuning in the UK.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, it'd be good. I mean, if we can link up in some way, I mean, I'm sure we'd be very interested. And I find it absolutely, I know we haven't got that much time. You've got your people coming. How much time are we doing? Oh, okay. We're doing fine. Okay. Yeah. So there's a possibility that you might be over and we could link up and maybe even, you know, get involved in running a workshop or something with you, perhaps?
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. It works out really well here, I think. And there's a group of 20 odd here who, and we've had obviously other students as well, but I think we're all interested. Oh, they want to go to San Diego, they're saying. No, they prefer San Diego to Glastonbury. Oh, right. Bit of sunshine.
We're planning a field trip to Tulum, Mexico, so maybe y'all can meet us down there.
Okay. Tell us about that then. It gets better and better. Oh, it's really good. I have to say, this is a fantastic opportunity to connect with you like this. I mean, it's the wonders of technology as well. But, you know, I'm just getting a sense of you being fully here in the room. I mean, I think your ether, you know, is right here, you know, and we're all just shining with it. Yeah, good. So you've talked a bit about the kind of the way that you sense, or you know, the energy field, the bioenergy field, and how you hear it as well with the changes in the overtones. I mean, we're quite familiar with these kind of concepts. So, I mean, I did, as you know, buy one of the forks from your store, and they are available from your store, aren't they? If people want to get them. So that's the 174. And then I've seen you also demonstrating a different kind of technique with the 528, the smaller one. Are you still using that these days? Is that still very much part of the...
I use those 2 forks. I mean, basically what I do, the way that I describe those 2 forks is, you know how you have combs for your hair and they all have fat tines and skinny tines, right? So
No, I've got curly hair. This is how I get it, you know. I do your forking every day. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry.
So basically, I will comb through the biofield with the 174. Those are the fat times.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'll follow with the 528. Same path, same process.
Okay, same through.
But it picks up the sort of higher, finer frequencies.
Yeah.
So another way to describe it, I have a carpenter client who said, oh, it's like coarse grit and fine grit sandpaper.
Yeah,
So yeah, you can look at it that way.
Uh-huh.
So the work can be done with just the 174, but I find that adding that 528 gives it just another element of finer work. Plus the 528 makes a pretty sound. You know, it's very crystalline and it's very lovely. And the 174 is just kind of like a workhorse, you know, it's like breaking up stuff, moving it along.
Yeah, okay.
But everybody has, everybody makes the 528 sound a little different depending on who they are. And I find that it really reveals like a lot of grace and beauty, and there's like an almost angelic aspect to it. It's just really lovely to hear.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good. And then what I've also picked up from reading in your videos and things, which are all available also from the website. And Gwen and I saying, they're really good as well. She signed up for them as well. She's saying, wish there were more. But anyway, there will be. Sure. So what I understand you saying is that you're kind of scanning through with the 174, with the 528, and you're picking up the static and this resistance, and then it's like there's this kind of integration process. Is that right? So you're kind of like bringing it in, and then it kind of maybe it's you get close to a chakra or something. Are you still working like this? And then,
and then you bring it into the chakra.
Yeah, and then it kind of drops in a little bit, and that's like the integration. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, good. And then you've got this other technique. Is that right? Where you're kind of like combing it out, or?
Well, it's more of I call it, so the two techniques are called combing. Which is this process of sort of finding stray photons, if you will, that are kind of floating around in your field because you've had some kind of entropic experience of stress, right? That's like makes you kind of fall apart or go to pieces. And so the tuning forks are almost like a magnetic wand that attaches to these, I don't even really know what they are, electrons, photons, right? Sure. Magnetic monopoles, and pulls them into the body, and then we'll bring it to the chakra, and the chakra is a little vortex, and when you get it right over the chakra like sucks it into the body, and then it feels like it just redistributes it. When I was years ago, I asked one of my kids, I have two boys, my younger son was 6 at the time, and I said to him, explain to me what's happening in this process. And he said, it's taking energy from where it doesn't belong and putting it where it does belong so it can get to work doing what it's supposed to do. And I thought that was like the most brilliant description.
Wow, incredible, amazing. How old? 6, right?
And so, because if we have energy stuck in our field that's supposed to be in our body, it's not doing the work it's supposed to be doing in our body. And so we experience a breakdown of like order and structure and function in the physiology because the subtle energy, the blueprint, the underlying order and structure, it's just not there.
Sure.
And so the body kind of starts to fall apart. And when you put that energy back, then that order, structure, and function resumes. So that's the part of the process of sort of combing it in. But then the columning piece is this idea that we're creating a laser-like coherence within the chakra itself from the body to the edge of the field. And that creates a kind of focus and integration and, for me, I think a presence, the ability to really show up sharp, focused, present in the present moment. And because your energy has gone from being like stuck in the past, stuck in trauma, to being connected to the unified field, then you're able to co-create and move in unison with the unified field. It's a lot more fun.
Great.
Stuck in your stuff.
Great. So this kind of process of columning out is not about sort of sucking it out or this bad thing that's been there and kind of sucking it out and sending it away out there. It's more about saying we're now integrated, the body's now doing its work, it's got all this stuff back in, and now from that more empowered place, let's really connect. Let's really connect with the whole field and kind of step into a place of real presence as we do that.
Yes.
That's kind of,
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful.
In this work, there's no, I know in some tuning practices or some healing practices, there's this idea that you find things that are bad and you get rid of them. In this work, all of this stuff that's in your field is you. It's just you kind of stuck in a difficult configuration. And it isn't something that needs to get rid of, rather it's something that needs to be liberated and integrated. Changing the expression of it.
Sure. Yeah, Gwenelai, I don't know if you can hear Gwenelai, she's saying it's a bit like soul retrieval, is what she's saying.
Yeah, it's absolutely exactly like soul retrieval.
Yeah.
That's the metaphor that I use. In fact, when I first started working in the field and discovering this stuff out in the field, I called it sonic soul retrieval.
Oh, you did? Right, okay.
I started to discover, like, oh, these are bits of self that have been left behind, and now we're finding them and bringing them back. But what's so interesting about this work is that if you go to a shaman and they do a soul retrieval session on you, they might get one bit of soul. But in this work, we can pick up, a dozen or more in one particular session. So this work is extremely efficient. It really, it heals a lot of stuff in pretty short order, which is neat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really great. It sounds amazing. And Gwendoline, do you want to just come over here and just, give us some feedback on your experience of this and the distant kind of work that you've done? There she is.
Hi. Well, my first session was the most amazing one. And it has had a repercussion that is, with time, growing stronger, where I resolved issues of difficulties to be present when there's a conflict and able to keep my own mind and able to keep my center. I couldn't. And I would get tangled up and I would lose myself and I was passive aggressive and it was terrible. And after the first session, something came up where that would have been brought up and it hasn't since then. And it's like I can get clear-headed and think and say the things that are balanced as opposed to getting all over the place and unable to think and lost. So that's the huge difference that the work has done. And that happened with the first session.
Just the first session, yeah, amazing.
The first session on the left side with the mother issues. And so it's been what I'm noticing, but I do a lot of work on myself already, but what I've noticed is it has allowed me to see my patterns better because I still have my own work to do.
Right.
And I could still get tangled if I felt like it. I mean, I couldn't really do it because I was straight as opposed to all over the place. So there was a part of me that was naturally able to be centered. But it has allowed me to be clearer on and more objective on the things that I do need to rectify. And it has highlighted in some ways, in a balanced way, not in a... So yeah, I absolutely love your work. It's really powerful.
Yeah, I think the self-awareness piece is really key, because we often have so many subconscious reactive behaviors that we don't recognize or understand. And, so many things really come from infancy and early childhood. Even in utero, we can develop particular patterns that we end up reacting from. And those are really hard to get to, through other forms of therapy. So with this work, because of this timeline aspect to the field, I have this ability to go back to and read the record of, gestation, pre-gestation, gestation, birth, infancy, which are all such key times in the development of our concept of self.
Yeah.
And really work to modulate the frequencies to really change the story, essentially, so that our deepest roots shift into a more harmonious expression, and it just bubbles over into here and now.
Yeah. It's really clear. I mean, what has come back into balance, I've worked on myself for decades, and I just didn't have access. I could pump myself up to be balanced, but it would go as soon as I was in the presence of the person with the conflict. And this is holding. I didn't work at all to get it balanced. It just, I'm not going to this other place anymore. So I know it's profound because I've consciously worked on myself for a really long time. So I know that it definitely is profound. I couldn't maintain myself, and now I just totally fine.
That's great. Along those lines, I just worked on a couple. I do this work on couples. I have them sit facing each other, and I work on the energy flows between the two of them, and you can really see how childhood pattern kind of dovetail and come up, and the fight that we're having with our spouse is really about our older sibling, when we were 5.
Yeah.
And so I actually, for the first time, did a distance couples session.
Okay.
And they were at a ball game. They weren't even paying attention. But I had worked on their field, and they were in such a flashpoint, and just kind of exploding all over the place with each other. And I worked on their fields, and settled them down and got everything kind of clearer and more in alignment. And I've gotten a Facebook message every day for the last 4 days about how dramatically their relationship shifted from that, and they weren't even paying attention. So,
this is getting even more amazing, Eileen. This is great. This is great. So this means that you can kind of just set your own timetable, basically, as the practitioner. You can do the work for the client whenever it suits you, kind of thing, and they don't even have to be paying attention or showing up or anything. You just handle it.
as long as they agree.
Yeah, as long as they agree. Yeah, right. Okay, sure.
Because in the ether, right, there's no consideration of time or space.
Sure.
So, you know, when we did that second distance session with the group and the call-in, we did a recording of it. And we had people listen to the recording and give us feedback. And people experienced profound energy shifts just listening to the recording of it, even though it had happened days or weeks before.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, I mean, I think people who've kind of got a Reiki background, for example, they would understand how the healing could happen out of time and out of space and all that. But it's great to know that you can do this also, you know, with the tuning forks, with your biofield and with your concept of ether. Just one last word, because I'm aware the time's kind of, we're just about running out of the...
question back there.
Somebody wants to ask a question. Yeah, this is Eileen. Eileen,'s...
Hi, I'm Eileen too. Hi, how are you?
Me too.
Hey, okay, ether, cool. What about, are you doing things interdimensionally?
Not yet.
Yeah, but you are really. Yeah. We can sense you are. Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I like experiments.
I would be willing.
Willing, interdimensionally. How far out can we go with this? Yeah. No, it's great. But actually, just to ground it for a minute, you are doing a PhD just now, right? As a doctorate research. And what's that on? What's your kind of focus?
Well, the PhD, the name of the program is Integral Health.
Yeah.
It's at a school in California called the California Institute for Human Science, which is a school that's set up to kind of bridge this science and spirituality gap that exists in academia, right? So, you know, our current academic environment is very much a product of the scientific revolution and this sort of split between the church is going to be responsible for matters of spirit, and then science is going to be responsible for things that are material. And when we get into subtle energy, we're in that very curious kind of in-between world that isn't really spirit, because if you move the tuning forks through the biofield, like, you encounter resistance. Like, there's stuff there, and it's subtle stuff, but it's still stuff.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, because there is a material aspect to this subtle energy, it should be measured, understood, defined, and accepted by science. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole aim of the school, is to be rigorously academic around this subject.
Yeah, great.
And so when I conducted the first group distance session, there was a very significant temperature change in the room as a consequence of having 140 etheric bodies there.
Yeah.
And
you
so
measured
the
that.
scientist
You measured
in
it,
me
yeah?
was like, data point. We can measure this, right?
Yeah.
So actually this summer, I'm doing an independent study where there's a room at the school that is a copper room. It's electromagnetically shielded. So it's a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
It is temperature controlled, light proof, soundproof, and there's a biophoton counter in it.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to conduct a group distance session in that room with a thermometer and a biophoton counter.
Right.
And then I am going to, I'm working with one of the leading scientists, who in California, who's in this realm of this bridge place. So he and I are going to work together to write this up. Great. And, hopefully get it published.
Yeah.
The timing is such that there's a day at my school where they're having PhD students do presentations on their research. So I'm going to do the experiment and then 2 days later present the data.
That's pretty brave.
Yeah, I know.
That sounds fantastic. It'd be really interesting to see the outcome of that.
Definitely.
There was an experiment done before, it was for reconnection healing.
Yeah.
Where there was an intent to do healing in a particular room, and before everybody arrived,
All right.
or
Yeah.
actually run.
Okay. There's reference to a previous research project with reconnective healing where a similar kind of temperature rise was noted. You might be aware of that sort of study, but
No, I'm not. I checked that out.
yeah. Have you got a reference for it?
It's in Eric Pearl's book, The Reconnection.
In Eric Pearl's book, the reconnected.
Okay.
Yeah. Something in there anyway. Yeah, great. Thanks. Well, we probably need to draw it to a close because you've got your class starting, but it's just been absolutely fantastic. You've been present with us here in Glastonbury, UK. So, Eileen, thank you very much for joining us. And, I think we should all give her a big round of applause. And
Tony. All right, good luck, everybody. Maybe I'll see you next year.
Thank you. Hopefully, yeah. How many people here want to see Eileen in the UK? Everyone's got their hands up. Right. Lovely. Have a great day. Thank you again for joining. Bye now. Bye. Ciao. She doesn't want to go. Hey, come and stay with us. Come over here.